does have a really nice V8 burble.
Welcome back to Living with a Classic. I'm here with my wife's 2006 Supercharged Range Rover, sort of our main family car. If you're new to the channel, you may not know we picked this thing up about a year ago, really cheaply with some issues with it. Sorted all those things out here on the channel, and it's been the main family transport ever since. And I mean, we have 2 kids, big dog and everything, and this thing has been absolutely perfect. We've actually driven it a lot more than I thought we would, about 25,000 kilometers in that year, so it's been a good car. However, we've had the first issue now, and since it's actually not raining, I thought we sorted that outside because it doesn't really fit in my main workshop, and it would just be a lot of work to get inside for something which should be a relatively quick fix. And while I'm getting ready here, the wind just picked out of nowhere, but hopefully you can still hear me pretty well. I do have one of those wind protectors on my mic. Just loosen up the lug nuts a bit. We're gonna put it up in the air and on jack stands and have a look on this side, because the issue is, a pretty common issue on these cars is a stuck caliper on that side. The other side, if you remember, was stuck when we bought it, and I replaced that one, but so that one is a year old. But on this side, it was fine. I replaced all the brake lines and everything, so all of that is new. However, about a week ago, when my wife came back from a trip, she told me that the car smelled a little weird. So I went out here, and this caliper was really hot and toasty, and it smelled all burnt in here. So I took it all apart then, and managed to push the caliper back and in and out a couple times, sort of exercise it a bit, because I knew it would take a couple days to get the parts and for me to be able to do it. And it's been fine ever since. It's binding a tiny bit. The caliper doesn't get hot, but the disc gets a little warm to the touch, not massively warm, and we will be doing short trips. So got the new caliper, and that's the nice thing about these, that they're also, I think they're on BMWs as well, rear caliper. So they're very cheap, about 80 bucks or so, all delivered. So it's one of those jobs where it's not worth rebuilding the old one or anything. But we'll take this apart, replace it, have a look how everything else looks around here, and hopefully it should be a pretty quick job. One thing to remember when jacking up one of these cars is it has air suspension. So make sure that you either disconnect your battery or leave a door or the back hatch open, because then the air suspension won't try to compensate for when you're raising the car up. Otherwise, that will just be a mess. Okay, that wheel looks like it's off the ground. Let's see if we can get this on the frame in here somewhere. Get up a little bit more. Okay, lower it down onto, there's like a frame rail in there. There we go. That should be fine. Support it a little bit on the jack as well. Now we can get that wheel off. When I did have this apart a week ago, the caliper was definitely stuck, and I managed to push it in a little bit, like I said. But one of the sliding pins, or whatever you want to call them, is a floating caliper, was stuck as well. So I did take that out, clean it up, and clean up everything, lubricate it, and then it was moving nicely. So we're going to check if that is still moving nicely now. Big heavy tire out of the way, and here we have the rear brakes, which are massive for just being rear brakes, but the front ones are the big 6 caliper or a 6-pot Caliper Brembo brakes. These are still really big ventilated rear brakes. They almost look like the size of the front brakes on my Jag. It's pretty easy to remove all this. It's just 2 13mm bolts there. Caliper slides off. I'm gonna go and get a pry bar to get it off because it'll probably be a little bit stuck again. And if you remember, I did replace these flexible lines that go all the way up into here. So they're brand new because they were rusting up here. As you see, you get a lot of sand and stuff and debris gets up here, and they do rust up there. So all of that is new. So I think we'll just replace the caliper and make sure that these are still sliding nicely. Okay, if I remember correctly, that is 13. This one is 14 or 15, so I do have a 14/15 here. The one thing that's good to know is that this area here is quite skinny, so you need one of these pretty thin open wrenches, not one of those a little bit thicker ones you can get sometimes. So that's why it's, in my opinion, it's always a good idea to have a couple of set of tools, and it doesn't mean they have to be expensive sets. A lot of my tools are quite cheap and but still good quality. Some of them I've had for as long as I've worked on cars, and some of them I've inherited from my dad, who had them when he was working on his first cars, you know, in the 70s. So they yeah, a lot of tools you can't really wear out. It's good to have a couple sets of them. Also, so that if you're like me and you daily drive old classics, it's really good to have a set of tools in your car as well. If you guys want to, let me know in the comments down below. We could go through that in a video sometimes. These are the tools I carry in my daily driving XJ6. Just because it's, you know, 50 years old and it's good to have some tools. Unlike this Range Rover, where probably the best tool to have with you is a code reader. That's the one thing that can really shut you down, is like a limp home mode or something. Okay, if you see, that slides nicely, and the bottom one slides nicely too, so that works. The ones I cleaned last weekend. Let's see if I have to get a pry bar, if I can do it with. This is the incorrect way to use this tool, but it should work. Yeah, I'm just being lazy. I'm gonna go get a pry bar, get that off, and then we'll get the new one on. Pry bar to the rescue. So we got the caliper up here. So my plan is to put the new one on here and then quickly move the brake hose over. But I'm just looking at everything slides very nicely, and so do the pads as well, which were new about a year ago. But I think we'll take them out and just clean them up a little bit, because they have been getting quite hot now. They don't look too badly glazed over or anything like that, but I like to put a little bit of grease where they slide. So yeah, don't really have too much dirt in there, but just a little bit. All of this was new a year ago, and I mean, this car gets driven pretty much every day and on dirt roads and everywhere, so it always sits outside as well. So I think it's not a bad idea just to give it a little extra help. Just a tiny bit there and there, just a tiny bit there and a tiny bit there. All right, I can hear that the garbage truck is off in distance, going to go pick up our trash, so you're not going to be able to hear me in a bit. So I'll do this on both sides and we'll get ready, put the new caliper back. Garbage truck just left and these are in now, moving very nicely. Time to get the new caliper out. That seems to come with some sort of grease, but put that to the side. I've already used my own. The one thing it doesn't seem to come with, which the other one did I bought, which I think it was another brand, was it doesn't come with any new bolts. But the old ones are in good condition, so not too worried. The nice thing is that this is such an easy car to at least replace the calipers on, and they're not very expensive, so even if they are a little bit prone to sticking on the rear on these cars, and that is probably just because the front brakes, especially in the Supercharged, are so powerful that they do basically almost all of the stopping on this car. And I mean, you don't really drive this car very aggressively. I mean, it's not a sporty car in that sense. It is a big, powerful car, but you don't really do a lot of emergency stopping with it. So the rears don't get exercised that much, even though I do take it out sometimes and just drive pretty quickly in reverse and stomp on the brakes just to get everything moving. But I think this caliper is probably original that I am replacing. Bottom one is tight. Let's just tighten the top one here. And yep, that feels tight. All right, they're both tight now, and as you can see, it is floating very nicely and moving. But I'm gonna move the brake line over, and I'm just gonna try and be really quick about it. Let's just see if there's a plug. Forgot to check. Yep, there was a plug in there. We'll remove that, and this should be 14. Yep, 14. There we go. I'm just going to try and be very, very quick about this. That copper sealing washer is just a year old, so I'm hoping that this will all seal pretty well. We're getting a good flow of brake fluid at least, so nothing wrong with the line. Okay, that should be tight now. I am going to go and get a rag and some brake fluid, just clean out, make sure we have no leaks there. But before I do that, I'm going to actually be a little bit lazy. The master cylinder is full, or the brake reservoir, so I am just going to let this thing gravity bleed for a little bit. If I can get this silly dust cap off. And it should be 10 millimeter. So I'm just going to open up the bleeder, and then while I go and get a rag and some brake cleaner, hopefully a little bit of this brake fluid will come in here and start bleeding it, and then I won't have such a hard time bleeding the caliper. Got a bit of brake clean left. Feels like it's one of those things I'm always running out of. Doesn't matter how much I buy. But the same for you guys. Is that one of those things that you have that's always running out? For me, it is penetrating fluid and brake clean. It's just, I don't know. It seems like whenever I need it, it's almost always completely empty. Okay, got no leaks coming from down there. Bleeder is open. Nothing has come out of it yet. So we're going to use my hand operated vacuum pump, which is a good lifesaver when doing something like this. So what I like to do is close off the bleed nipple a bit, and that way I can build up a vacuum and then just open it a little bit, and it usually helps to draw the air out. But sometimes it's a little bit of a tedious process. Okay, not really getting anything yet, so I'll tighten up the bleeder and just gonna pump the brakes a couple times, try and get some fluid down here, and then we'll try again. Let's try this again. The first two pumps, the brake pedal just went to the floor, and then it got firm again after that. So I think that we probably just compressed this a little bit. But let's build up a vacuum. And yes, I have checked, the master cylinder is still completely full. Pretty good vacuum there. And wrong way. All right, we're starting to get some air and fluid. Once again, the easiest way to bleed brakes is just to have an assistant, but sometimes you're on your own. I'm out here, I don't have compressed air because otherwise I have a compressed air driven bleeder as well. But this one works really well. Just takes a little bit of time, but it helps if you close it up and build up a big vacuum. And sort of going almost as if you're bleeding brakes with an assistant. But I'll finish up the bleeding here. It's getting very, very windy and raining quite a bit now. So I'll finish off the bleeding here, put everything back together. Let's go for a little bit of a test drive, and hopefully this caliper stays nice and cold. Back on the ground, all tools are put away. I also filled up a little bit of brake fluid. I know it looks sort of dark, but that's just a container. It's all really nice and clean when you look inside. It's up at the max again. Checked all the other fluids, so let's take it for a brief little drive to see how it does. Hopefully, you know, it doesn't stick again. It makes a lovely sound when it starts up. I'll drive for a little bit, then I'll update you guys. We'll stop by the side of the road and see if it gets hot or not. For regular viewers of my channel, you can probably guess what we're doing. We're going what I like to call around the block, but I live in the middle of nowhere in the countryside, so it's just basically a private road that goes in between some of the farms out here, and I can't remember correctly, but it is somewhere along the lines of 5 kilometers, something like that. So it's a pretty good little test route, and the good thing is anywhere from there it's nice to walk home, and we know most of the neighbors there, so you know, if you break down, you always have someone who can help out. You can push the car into their yard and go and get it later with a tractor or something. Good thing about living in the country. But so far the only thing I'm really feeling is that the brake pedal is I don't know, it almost feels like it's almost a little bit softer, but it probably makes sense because if one of the calipers wasn't really doing anything when you were pushing on it. But I've also been braking this car very lightly the last week we've been driving it, just because I know that we've had that slightly sticky caliper. It was better when I pushed it in and out a couple times while waiting for the part, but definitely not a long-term fix. But let's do a good stop here. Pulling extremely well. I mean, not pulling to any direction, just nice and straight. It's getting pretty close to the annual inspection time, or MOT for this thing. If I remember correctly, it should be possibly next month or something. I'm going to double check that. So I don't know, we may have a couple things to check. I think there's one saying about one side light up front. I need to have a look at that. We had a headlight out a while ago. I replaced that. Those xenon ones, so they should last pretty long. And other than that, things look fine. I'm gonna have a look underneath the car before I take it on inspection, but since I don't have a lift to get this thing completely up in the air, I can't really see everything. But we'll have a look at most things. The next thing it will get is an oil change. It's been close to a year since it's had one, and it's starting to look kind of dark. So we'll replace that and have a look around the car before MOT. We'll do a separate video on that. But I'm going to drive a little bit further up here, then we'll pull over, and you guessed it, one of my favorite spots where it's all the trees and stuff. We'll pull over there, have a feel of the rear brake caliper. It should be completely cold, and fingers crossed that it is. Pulled over in my favorite spot, and let's have a look. Ice cold and slightly colder than body temperature. And the other side is ice cold and slightly colder than body temperature as well. You can just have a look at front up front. These giant Brembo brakes are very cold as well. All right, I think we fixed it. And I'm not sure if the camera will pick this up, but it does sound very good just burbling along here. I'll move my mic over there.
Does have a really nice V8 burble.
I call that a big success. I'm gonna head back home now, and I'm actually gonna leave again for a little bit of a longer trip. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but if anything does come up then, because that will be about half an hour, 40 minutes on the highway, and I'll pull over and see how it feels. But if everything, if something doesn't feel normal, then I'll let you guys know and update that after the video. But if I haven't done that, then everything was a success. I'm actually going to try and get some parts to save the stricken Saab. The closest pick and pull place to me, which is Junkyard Cars, where you can go in and pick your own parts, has a Saab just like mine. It's a 94 though, but everything else is the same. So I'm hoping it has the broken box I'm looking for and a couple of other things, but that will be a separate video. So I'm not sure which video is coming up first, this one or the Saab one. But I thought it'd be fun to film going to a junkyard. It's always fun to see what's in there and to pick some parts. But this video was about fixing things on the Range Rover. Seems like it's been fixed. Good cheap fix as well, and hopefully it will stay fixed for a long time. Anyways, if you liked this video, please give a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, you want to follow along on all the cars here on the channel. I think I counted that we got 7 or 8 cars that we feature regularly, or if you count the Saab, it's 9, so it's quite a fleet now. So if you want to follow along, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Anyways, until next time, I'm Adam, and this was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.